Welcome to Season 2 of Producer Points. My name is Justin Gamella, and I'll be your host. I'm a producer and songwriter who's had the honor of working with some of the best in the industry. This season, we're diving even deeper into one-on-one conversations with producers, mixers, songwriters, and artists, exploring their unique journeys, creative process, and insights that shape great music. Join me for real talks, straight from the studio, where music and life intersect. This is Producer Points. Today on Producer Points, we're diving into the mind of a producer and songwriter who's effortlessly navigated the pop landscape to redefine what's possible across multiple genres, even making a seamless transition from pop to country and far beyond. His work has attracted an eclectic roster of collaborators, including Doja Cat, Walker Hayes, Jackson Wang, Tanner Adele, They, and Ellie Font. Each of these artists has found in him a creative partner who knows how to elevate their visions to the next level, delivering fresh and unforgettable records every time. Whether he's crafting immersive pop hits, infusing modern country tracks with bold contemporary elements, or blending genres in ways no one else is doing, his work is a masterclass in versatility and innovation. Get ready for an inside look at the artistry, techniques, and gear of one of today's most forward-thinking creators. Please join me in welcoming Cambo. Dude, thanks for being here.
Yes. I was so looking forward to
the
how
intro.
you're going to big me up on the intro.
I found that just pumping people up kind of relaxes everyone.
Oh, I feel so good now.
Right. It's like I really try and just get that dopamine in you.
Yeah.
You know?
I needed it.
Well, dude, thank you so much for doing the podcast.
Thanks for having
we haven't
me.
met before. I've actually worked with your brother, who I'm planning on asking eventually on the podcast.
I was going to recommend.
Oh, yeah, no, of course. Come on. Lou's amazing. Oh, dude, we start every podcast off with hearing how you got your start in music. And this is the first time where I know absolutely zero about your start. So I'm super curious.
All right. Well, I grew up in like a quasi-musical family. Like my parents were in like a local cover band.
Oh, sick.
Called Coastal Fog. So there was like, my dad's a guitar collector and kind of like a gearhead. I like to describe him as somebody like, he's like if Keith Richards never got good at guitar. So like loves the rock and roll lifestyle, but like just spent all his money on gear and was like, how do I use this stuff?
Yeah.
You know? So just like had gear around all the time, was always going to gigs.
Where were you growing up?
In Northern California, in this teeny town called Point Reyes, which is just north of San Francisco, like a little hippie kind of rancher town.
I know. I honeymooned there.
You love oysters and wine. And
exactly. Yeah.
So pretty picturesque.
Yes,
and
beautiful place.
Yeah. But, you know, like pretty isolated, even though it's so close to San Francisco.
It's just far enough where like you're probably not going to San Francisco all the time.
Yeah, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not. But, you know, like as soon as I could, I moved to San Francisco and got pretty heavily involved in like the Bay Area hip hop scene.
Sick.
And this was like during the hyphy movement.
Okay.
So I was in like a rap crew and was like making beats for everybody. And I actually went to a public high school out in Marin County that taught music technology. So they taught us how to use Reason and Sonar.
I used Reason and Sonar.
Yeah.
This was years ago.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, I'm 35. We're around the same age. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I started on acid.
Wow.
Yeah. So back in the day, I think my first like audio gig was recording this like hack comedian and putting like canned laughter. And I was like I was like 15 or something like that. But my teacher, who's like the band teacher, this guy Chip Boaz, like the actual band at that school was trash. So they had this band room, but like no real band.
Yeah.
And they had a Pro Tools rig there, like on one of those old iMacs that like was like clear and colorful and all of that.
Yep.
It was like Pro Tools 4 or something at the time. And so he would let me go up because I already knew a bunch of the stuff that they were teaching.
Right.
And just like let me like record vocals and stuff. And I was making like really bad rap music at that time. But anyways, it informed like when I moved to San Francisco, it informed just how to work with artists and stuff like that. And I was doing still a lot of my own stuff. I like did a band thing and all of that. But anyways, I was like, Mom, the band's going to make it. We got to move to LA. So like 15 years ago, I moved to Los Angeles.
Crazy.
And turns out the band didn't make it, but I met this dude who's an amazing producer and a mentor and a dear friend of mine who goes by Yeti Beats.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm working with this young artist and I need like a good engineer and somebody that like knows their way around working with artists. who's not going to like creep on this girl. You know, she's super young. And I was like, dude, I'm your guy. And that turned out to be Doja Cat. And so, yeah, I would like go and pick Doja up from her mom's house in Valley
she was
Village.
that young when you were
She was 16 when I met her. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'd pick her up and I'd drive her to the studio and we would, you know, make music.
Right.
And this went on for like, I think 6 years. And in that time, like she got signed with Luke and we did an EP and then she kind of got shelved for a while. And then she did the whole Moo thing and came back. And I was kind of around for that whole era.
Yeah.
But, you know, the way her brain was working at the time as an artist, she's developed incredibly. And obviously she's a worldwide superstar now. But she would write parts of songs and then be uninterested and it'd be time to take her home.
Right.
So I'd take her home and then I'd come back to the studio and like do all my backups and do like rough mixes. Right. And I'd sit there just for fun and like write
like finish
the second verses. And every once in a while, you know, she'd come back and she'd be in a mood where she would tolerate my creativity and my opinion. And I'd spit her a verse and she'd be like, I love that.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got.
Also, just sidetrack, you know how awesome it would be just to have like not write the second verse and have like a person who only writes second verses.
That's kind of me, to be honest with you. I never have the first good idea, but like once the idea is like going, I'm like, I think I know what to do with this.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, started doing that. And then also with Yeti, you know, his career was budding and he had his hands full with dealing with Luke and all of these people and everybody wanted a piece of it. So I kind of just had to fill up a lot of spaces and like create my own work. And so that happened on like the writing side for Doja and then on the production side with Yeti as well.
Right.
And I had my own like pretty amateur chops, but Yeti had a way he wanted to do things and like Circuit was showing up and like giving me vocal chains. And I got to work with like Thundercat. I met George Clinton and Sly and Flea, and it was a real like special engineering job. I'm putting like the finger quotes on.
Do you just not play bass anymore after like all those experiences?
I learned that I should not touch instruments as much as possible. It actually was just really informative and all of that. And then, you know, like that kind of just like ran its course, you know. I kind of realized that like there wasn't enough space for me there. Respectfully.
Yeah.
So my brother and I, who's also a producer, Lou All Day, we, I don't know, I kind of had just like, I think I was like 26. I kind of just had like a soul searching moment.
Right.
The band wasn't going to make it. And like, I was unhappy where I was. And I literally like, we were at a studio on El Centro in Santa Monica. And I just kind of like walked the streets of Hollywood.
Right.
And I saw this for rent sign and just inquired. This was like December of 2015, applied for this space and then got the spot. And with like no money, my brother and I we're going to build a studio here. So we built this studio. It's called Lineage Studios. Yeah. We're like basically across the street from the W in Hollywood. And it's like a little 2-room spot. And we have like, you know, piano, organ, drum set, little kind of vocal booth, but it's all DIY, like the panels, everything. We have a beautiful control room. And we worked out of there for quite a long time and just really cut our teeth as like independent songwriters and producers. Along the way, we met this gentleman named Doug DeLuca, who's my manager and business partner.
Yeah, I love Doug.
My brother met Doug because Doug was trying to do his own artist stuff.
Yeah.
It's like kind of blue-eyed soul type vibes. And, you know, he did his thing and he kind of was like, I don't want to do the artist thing. But he's such an organized, like, brilliant dude that he was like, well, are you guys registered for all your songs in ASCAP? And, like, who's going to set up your sessions? And I had like one manager at that time, no publishing, nothing. And he was like, well, if I can bring you work, like, we'll cut deals, like, in that capacity. And, you know, over the last 5 years or so, it's just kind of snowballed into, you know, great stuff, you know? I've been able to write hits and incredible people, and I get to travel and
you get to do music full time. That's the dream.
Yeah, but during that whole time, as I was engineering and doing all this stuff, I was bartending like 6 nights a week.
Yes.
And at the spot called the Virgil, at the spot called Old Fields Liquor Room, at Bigfoot, and I was also like traveling to Northern California and trimming weed like every winter.
It's a good job.
It was for sure. So it was a pretty brutal grind for 8 years or so.
Dude, I mean, that's what I tell a lot of producers who are like, oh, LA is so expensive. It's like, yeah, man, you're gonna have to get a part-time job.
Yeah.
Like, we've all done it. I think how you did it, like, you work nights so you could do sessions. I happen to work in the mornings because I'm a morning person, and I would work from like 6 to like 10 or 11, and then I would do my sessions. And that's just what it is. You gotta find a way to make it work because you just have to be here for the most part.
And it's not going to hand it to you
Right.
by any means. I mean, I think some people get really lucky, but I don't even know. Like, I feel if I had success at a much younger age, like I didn't have my first big song until I was like 35, or maybe 34. But had it happened earlier, probably would not have been a good outcome.
Yeah.
I don't think I was ready for it, like mentally and like in terms of just stability.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work, and it's, especially producers. I find producers have a little bit more of a grind sometimes than songwriters, just because I feel like sometimes again, this is not always true, but songwriters, sometimes it's like people just like hear their voice on things and it's just so much more obvious, and producers, it's like, I don't know. I feel like you have so much more to learn. You have to learn how to engineer. You have to learn how to, navigate a studio. You have to learn how to make things sound good, and it just getting your reps in.
Yeah, I mean, use this if you want in the podcast, but I'm from actually a unique position where most of my success has been as a songwriter.
Yes, same. Funny enough, same.
Right.
Yes.
And, I work with songwriters a lot that are like, you don't get it because you're a producer.
Yeah.
But in fact, I do.
Right.
I do know how hard it is to be a songwriter. But there's this battle in my head, right? Because everybody needs to get paid, and I'm paying songwriters out of my producer fees now. And
that's amazing.
I just think it's to be fair. It shouldn't be our job. It should be,
It has to start somewhere. I mean, like I said, I'm a huge songwriter advocate. I'm going to bring up SONA again for everyone. Songwriters of North America. I believe everyone should join that. But it's like, yeah, it sucks that it does, the labels mostly make it fall on us to like be like, all right, well, we have to make sure the songwriters get paid, and they're like, well, we don't have the budget for it. And it's like, I mean, you definitely do, but I guess I'll take it out of mine because I feel morally obligated to do that.
Well, yeah, we want all our people to eat, but I will say, like, time spent, like, there's time spent to become a great songwriter, and to be able to access inspiration at any time, is a gift and also a practice. But time spent, like, tuning vocals and, like, just EQing a kick or just finding the right tone,
kick,
the right sound, is like, that just takes time no matter what.
Yeah.
And I definitely find that I spend way more time on getting a song to its completion than most people I'm working with.
Yeah.
And there should be value in that at the end of the day.
There is. I've had like a lot of, because people know I'm such a songwriter advocate, I've had so many conversations with top liners and songwriters where they're like, I just don't understand why producers get these like fees and like songwriters don't. And it's like, songwriters should be getting fees.
I agree.
But it's also like, I don't think like, because someone was, we're just like having a discussion and they were like, songwriters should get just as much as producer fees. And I'm like, well, like, I'm working on the song for like, sometimes 40 plus hours, and you were here for like 5, and we're still splitting that publishing the same. And it's like, and how producers work, it's like we're expected to like have a studio. Like I had like my operating costs as a producer are so much higher than a songwriter's.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I agree with that.
Yeah. It was just like, they didn't like sometimes it was a young songwriter who just like didn't understand that. And so it was like a thing where it was just like, because half my songs, like I'm only a songwriter on.
Right.
So I have that perspective, I guess.
At the same time, though, I do think top line and lyric is the most important part of any song.
1,000%.
Like I'm song forward. I am like vocal forward. Kind of the rest is like, a lot of people can do what we do,
Right.
but like in terms of like making like a Dua Lipa type beat or something like that, or making a country type track.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot to get it like enough to write a song over.
Right.
But to make a great song is to me the most important thing. And that is extremely undervalued. I think it's more of a question of like, how do we adjust where the value is. Like, I think songwriters should have master points on everything. And I don't think producers should get paid any less, but I do think songwriters should get paid.
Yeah, they should get paid. And like, I have like the more controversial take on it, where it's like, I think we fix a ton of problems, but it's just not going to happen anytime soon. Same with trying to get songwriters master points. But you fix a lot of problems if you just fix how DSPs pay out to publishing owners, right, and songwriters, where if it's like, in my opinion, and I know labels aren't going to like to hear, but in my opinion, we should be splitting all the money from the DSPs like 50-50 master publishing.
Yes.
I think that's just what it's got to be, and I think you solve so many problems right there. If that, like,
in a perfect world.
I know,
man,
in a perfect world,
it'd be so good.
Because this is just like me going off a tangent here, but like what ends up happening, right, is that like now songwriters don't have to be involved in like negotiating and trying to get like all these things. Now it's like kind of like how it used to be, where it's like, oh, songwriters just make great money from publishing.
Well, the only way to make money now as a songwriter is either you get a great sync or you go to radio.
Radio, right. And that's what we're all dying for. Because when for people who don't know, listeners who don't know, when a song goes to radio, as far as publishing and writing goes, it's like, that's where the money is.
Yeah, because if you own the master on something, you don't make money at radio.
No, you don't.
You know?
Yeah.
Radio changed my life.
Yes.
And Nashville changed my life in that way, because Nashville has a great infrastructure for bringing their artists up and up and up. And it's almost like if you're there for long enough, you're going to get on the radio, as long as you're working and doing everything right. You know, and Nashville's so full of great talent, but it's like almost like this archaic way of approaching radio, and there's so many flaws with it in terms of how they treat women and people of color and things like that. It's almost like heartbreaking. Well, it is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But they cycle people through, so everybody gets a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
You know, the pop world LA doesn't do it as well, you know, but we're more of like,
I find that LA is more open to like anyone really does have a shot here to like blow up at any point.
Well, somebody said to me, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I would say LA embodies culture and Nashville does a great job at strategy.
Yes.
You know?
I think that's a really great way to put it.
Yeah. I didn't say that. Somebody did.
Yeah.
I
think it's pretty damn true.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah.
It's a whole thing, and it's like, we know it has to be fixed. Again, like, people should join institutions like SONA.
100%ers.
You know, 100%ers is another great one. You know, if you're not in a PRO, ASCAP, in my opinion, is a little bit better right now, but I can, I'll leave it at that. BMI is having some issues.
Yeah.
It's that I don't like. And being up to date, like following the NMPA to see what they're doing. They're trying to fight the good fight as well.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah. And it's like, there's so much going on in our world right now that unfortunately our lives are getting a little, we're getting passed over in a lot of ways like that. Yeah. But I do think it's important for all of us as songwriters and producers and stuff like that to become activists and proactive in our own fight, like, because it is a vocation. It doesn't require a college degree, yet we are probably some of the hardest working, most underpaid people on planet Earth.
I think as far as like artists and entertainment industry, like we 1,000% our songwriters are.
Yes.
It's like we have, again, this is for more listeners. It's like fun fact, like songwriters are one of the most heavily regulated industries because we're one of the few industries where the government sets our rates.
Yeah.
We can't screenwriters and other people in other entertainment things, like they're able to negotiate because they were able to unionize, and we're not able to unionize and negotiate directly with Spotify and Apple Music and all those things. It's all through the government. So
because of these copyright acts.
Yes, these ancient laws.
1965 or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was like even earlier than that.
Yeah, it was earlier
like
than
the
that.
1920s.
The advent of radio.
Right. And then the Reagan administration basically made it, we're independent contractors, and because we're independent contractors, we're not legally allowed to unionize. It's a very dumb interpretation, but that's how it's interpreted right now. So I'm on this tangent. Like, this is what people like SONA and other organizations are trying to fight. They're trying to fight to get rid of that with Congress so we can unionize.
Yeah.
And bargain directly with the DSPs.
I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I'm all for it.
All right, I want to move on to talking a little bit more about your workflow, your studio, how you like to get things done. One of the things that we discuss on this podcast all the time is, you're a pop producer, a country guy.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get songs out quickly. What's kind of your process to getting, those day one or day two bounces out to your collaborators?
Like, okay, for me, it's having a really great vocal chain from the jump. I think a lot of things that people overlook is not just the vocal chain that's going out to mix. Yeah. It's the one that people are hearing in their headphones.
Yep.
So having something like that, like ready to go, is crucial. And, if somebody doesn't like reverb, being able to just tune that down, tune it up, that's crucial. I'm pretty lucky. I collaborate with incredibly talented musicians. Like I often work with my brother Lou. I work constantly with Uncle Lily. His name's Liam Kevaney, incredible musician. So I'm kind of sitting at the chair often, like taking in information, bring it into my session and like arranging, making adjustments, adding kind of melodies and things like that. And then turning around and like checking in on the song. But when you're getting great input like that, when you're getting a great vocal signal, when you're getting a good guitar part that doesn't take like a lot of, time stretching and things like that, it just makes the job at the end of the day way easier. But again, we said earlier, like vocal is the most important.
Yep.
So if you have a vocal that just sounds hella good, people are just going to love that and want to come back.
Yeah.
I honestly think that's one of my biggest strengths as like a producer. And because I have so much chops as an engineer, people love the way my vocals sound like immediately.
Yeah. I've had the same exact like kind of success with that, where it's like I've even gotten just like vocal production gigs from like artists come by. They're like, oh man, I love how you do my vocal. Like, can you do my vocal for these other songs? And it I think artists 99% of the time they are listening to their vocal first.
Yes.
And like
absolutely.
That's how you're, as a producer and a songwriter, is going to sell your song.
Well, think about a film, right?
Yeah.
In a film, you never notice the sound, and when the sound's done right.
Right.
And as a producer, that's kind of what you want to have happen. You don't want anything about your production to stick out in a negative way. And because everybody's looking at the acting and the visual in a film, right? But in music, especially the artists are intently hyper focused on their vocal and their delivery, the nuances. Some of that comes in time, just from learning. Like my biggest mistake when I was younger was I would like overtune and over perfect things. Like it used to drive Doja fucking crazy, dude. And I'd have to I would spend hours on Melodyne and it would be this perfect thing. It wasn't her vibe and it wasn't her sound. And I had to unlearn a lot of that. And I think, you got to know your artist and know the genre. Right. Like Nashville, for example, they want it to sound great, but it has to sound natural. So yeah, to me, it's all vocal first. And then I'm of the mind too, don't go too hard on the first day unless you're so inspired and you're like, I can't stop working on this song. Ride that wave. Yeah. But give people between 60 and 70% of what you're capable of, and then wait for them to be like, we love this song. And because that helps save you time so you can go live your life or work on something else. And B, it puts the ball in their court a little bit, and it just saves space for a conversation of okay, what's next? What do you want? What do you like about the production? What don't you? And you can ultimately end up with a better product.
I'm nodding my head so much because that is the exact strategy.
Yes,
I do. Where it's I never, again, you said, you had those rare times of ooh, I'm really fucking feeling this. I want to finish it. But most of the time I do not do that because you said, I think it's nice to give something the song is there. I'm such a firm believer that I'm a song first everything. And to me, it's if the song is good, you'll know no matter what the production is. You can kind of see past it a lot of times. And then also it's I like the idea, I say it's giving people jobs where it's if I give something to an artist or an A&R or their manager and oh man, this is sick. And if we do these three things, it'll be even better. And now everyone is a little bit more attached to it. And that's, exactly. It's everyone's now we're all part of the song, as opposed to I gave you this finished thing and it's take it or leave it kind of approach.
Yeah, I agree. I will say this though. That's why it's so important to be able to get a great sounding recording on day one. Something I've learned about Nashville is they do work tapes, which sometimes is just a cell phone in the middle, like on a table,
Yeah.
which is so foreign to me going in there. Like, sometimes I'm there as a track guy is what they call us. We're producers, but they'll never use your production. They're going to take it to somebody.
Right.
They're going to have an in-house band and it's going to sound like a country record.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean we can't do that, but that their infrastructure
That's the
is laid out
process,
that
and
way.
it's like, great.
Yeah. But what you would really want as a producer is to have them attached to the recording in the moment of that day. And getting to that point requires like knowing your gear and knowing your room and things like that. You know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of gear and room and stuff, what's your typical vocal chain in the box or out the box? Like what's making you be confident in your vocal recording so quickly?
Okay. So I have the studio in Hollywood, but I also have my home studio, which is like in a similar situation like this. It's a garage studio. But it's set up nice, and I love working from home because, my commute is about like 7 feet from my back door.
It's quite nice. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and I cook for sessions and things like that, and it's a homey vibe. I think somebody else said the key to a great session is a long lunch. I know you guys aren't doing the food segment, but I'm just going to throw that out there.
Do it.
But yeah, so mostly I'm doing sessions from home, and it's not a soundproof room. I live on Fountain, so it's a noisy situation.
Right.
And, the SM7 is like the tried and true. But when I was touring with Doja for years, we used this. And actually, I found this mic because the Bay Area rapper Pep Love used to use it on stage. It was a Neumann KMS 193.
Yeah, great.
I think is what it is.
I know what mic you're talking about. Before you were like, oh yeah, what's that thing? And I was like,
well, the TLM 190, or it's the KMS 153, the TLM 193.
Yeah.
TLM we use at the studio in Hollywood.
Is that the one where they call it like a dynamic cardioid or something like that?
Yes, it's a handheld mic. Yeah. It kind of looks like a Sennheiser.
Yeah.
But if you put like a little popper stopper around it, like you have here on these mics, and you just have people kind of sing over it at an angle, it sounds like a Neumann. And I use that on everything.
Wow.
On everything. And,
are people holding it while they sing it? Or
depends on what they want. I have a stand, but I think most people like to sit and hold it or stand and hold it. I use it on acoustics in my room where I'm just sitting there holding it and like kind of testing it out in the headphones. It's not what you would call like a professional studio setup.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm getting all of my initial audio.
Right.
And then I have an LA 2610 and then I go just straight into my, UAD and I put an LA 2A on it and I do about 3 decibels of compression and then it goes into my vocal chain. And I don't use Pro Tools anymore.
Well, what are you in
all in Ableton?
Yeah.
We were in Nashville at the beginning of December, and the guy was like, "Wait, you're recording into Ableton?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah." Like, people have the idea that, and I think it's arguable that Pro Tools has, a better quality of sound to it.
I think it does. I'm one of those people where
I think it does too, but I just don't think anybody really.
I think as long as at the end of the day it's getting mixed in Pro Tools. Because that's at the end of the day.
That's the other thing is I'm not mixing records anymore. I did for a while. It is beyond my level of skill set. There are people that are so much better at it, but you have to deliver great sounding stuff to get a great sounding mix.
Yeah, you ask any mixer, they're always going to say my best mixes were the ones where the mix was already there.
Yes. And delivering them like just peak stems that are super organized, and they don't have to like go back and forth. They're not missing anything.
No, it's all there.
Yeah. And it's labeled properly and all of that they're just going to love you and want to do a better job for you.
Dude, that's what I found. I used to, now I'm fortunate where I just sent off my Pro Tools session, but for a while I was sending stems and it was just like, I was so anal about it because I'm like, how would I want stems? And it's like, I separated by like drums, bass, keys, guitars, vocals.
In different folders and stuff.
Yeah. So it's like, because I know a lot of these guys too, it's like they want to be able to drag them all together because they want to like do the thing. Because sometimes when
group
it's just
them however they want.
Right.
They all have their own like templates that they're using.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like when it's all, this is just for our listeners, like when it's all in one folder and they have to like drag it in, then find like, oh wait, is this a drum? Okay, this isn't a drum. This is, it's a nightmare for them.
Yeah.
Like save them the hour. Don't know.
You know what though? It's like the way like Splice labels their things. It's done that in a specific way. And engineers will love something similar to that too.
Yes.
Because how many tracks that are labeled kick do they get every year? You know? like label it like the artist's initials, underscore, kick,
Right.
underscore, song title, you know? They'll be able to find that anytime they want to.
It's also super easy. I don't know if people always use Mac, but in Mac, like you can like select all and like you can rename everything. Where it's like add the prefix and you can like do that before.
Right.
And it's just like it takes 5 seconds to do to like rename that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I also think, you know, if you find a great mixer, go back to that person.
Yeah.
To just give them work, because that's also a really challenging, underpaid job.
Yep.
But like, if you like their work and they understand your sound, you know, you're just going to keep getting good stuff.
Dude, I have one mixer that I use for like most of my mixes. My boy Yanni AP, who
All right.
we love Yanni. He's been on the podcast. He's my guy, and it's just like he's also like become one of like my very, very good friends. So it's just like nice where it's like, it's also for the, you know, it's also the benefit of having a mixer that you work with a lot, where it's like when you do a project that has no budget and you're like, hey, I really believe in this.
Right.
Like, can you do this on back end or something? They're so much more likely to say yes. And like,
And dude,
no,
so much of it is that like,
Yes.
we're not like the occurrence where I'm working with a big artist that has a big budget is like 5 to 10% of the time.
Yeah,
like
right.
I'm usually working with, you know, new artists or people that just signed and things like that, you know? So you're often going to be dealing with situations where money is tight.
Yeah.
You know, like way more often than not.
Yeah.
Way more often than not.
Yeah, and you know, it's why I love working with Yanni, because he anytime I give him something, he says yes. I don't think he will ever say no to me on anything.
Love it. Gotta meet him.
Oh yeah, you should meet him. He's amazing and just a great mixer. That's why I love him so much. You know, I want to also talk about getting these bounces out quickly. How heavily do you like to rely on a mix bus, and if you feel comfortable, like what do you like on your mix bus?
Oh man, I mean, I use my brother's template a lot.
I've seen your brother's template.
Yeah,
so,
where he has like multiple layers of limiting and stuff like that. I would obnoxiously be the guy to just like throw on God Particle and like crank it.
Dude, you'd be surprised just like producers with like multiple number ones were like, yeah, just throw God Particle.
But let me put it this way though. I've been down the road, you know, like I'm the old guy in the room now. I've like done all of the very detail-oriented work and really spent time on having each one come out in its own way.
Yeah.
And for me, it doesn't make sense as much to rely on that. What I will say is like before I don't mix my songs into the bus.
Okay.
I do it post, and it's not changing like the EQ curve of it a bunch, you know, but yeah, like I used to just use like the LL3 multiband and just like take it down like 8 dB or something like that. God Particle's fun because it's just obnoxiously loud, and you have that like big knob, and you're like, oh wow, stereo image.
Great,
you know?
there it is. Yeah.
But mixing has become less and less of my focus. You know, I think what I'm running into now is I need to get back into it a bit more because the records that I've been listening to and loving have like beautiful stereo image, and they're really choosy about what's right and what's left and what's not. And, you know, in the moment, I'm not trying to have like moments of silence where I'm in my headphones and no one's doing anything and I'm like nerding out. And also like, I want to go home after the session and cook some dinner and like chill out, you know? So it's pretty streamlined. But I'm just so dialed that like, even if someone's like, what is this obnoxious limiter? I can take it off and the mix sounds
like generally the same.
Pretty much the same. It's just, you know, quieter.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you aim to get, you know, to get a certain amount of like LUFs to feel comfortable setting it out? Or you're just like, all right, this sounds loud enough. Like I'm good to go.
Sometimes I get there, like if I'm like sending it off to like a big mixer or something like that, and I'm like, it kind of has to be in this range, or if they're giving me feedback.
I think that's the difference too. It's like the difference between like getting your rough mix versus like the day one
like
bounces
or something like that.
Yeah,
you know? But you know, A&Rs and management and people like that, they don't give a shit. You know, some of them do. Don't get me wrong. Some of them know their stuff, but it has to just be like, if you're making a country song and an A&R is listening to like a 2 Chainz song and then something like that, they have to have the same weight and the same energy. And to me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to break rules. I'm willing to break all the rules.
Right, to get it there.
I've thrown it out the window at this point. I mean, as long as you don't have to backtrack, as long as you have like phasing issues and stuff like that, like I'll do some stuff that would probably like make most producers cringe, you know? And I'm like, but it sounds good, you know? So
well, what are you talking about that you're like doing that you're like,
oh, like I'll put like a stereo image on a main vocal.
Great.
You know?
Yeah.
Like just on serial on the track.
Yeah.
If it needs it. I'll only do it though if like the vocal is kind of just boring. Like maybe the singer's not great or their performance is like lackluster.
Right.
Just to like, because ultimately what I want is like a very dry, beautiful main vocal.
Right.
It's like right there for you. And it's just like perfect, you know? That takes an incredible artist. Yeah. And if you're an artist that can't accomplish that, that doesn't make you any less viable to me or any less talented or creative. That's just like somebody that has vocal ability that is really rare, you know? We're all looking for that, you know? Anybody that's listening could name, 10 that have that. But there's nothing wrong with like adding a little sauce. Now, again, I don't recommend adding it serial. I would send it to a bus or something like that. But if I'm in the moment and I just need it,
you're just doing it.
I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It is that battle, right?
Yeah.
Of when you know your shit, when you're an informed audio engineer and producer and you listen to all the podcasts and you follow everybody on Instagram and TikTok, like you wanna get it right. We are in customer service, and it's like if somebody wants their steak well done, they might be wrong, but you sell them the steak well done.
Right.
And so, and we're, money's hard to come by. So I don't think you're actually like degrading the quality of music. If you know that this song is eventually going to go to mix, I don't think everything should be redline, especially like pre-mix bus. Like you got to have headroom. You got to like leave for that. But we're here to we're in the business of making money on music,
right? And the other thing is to have a little bit of like humility, recognizing that you can be that things are taste based and that you can be quote unquote wrong about a thing. Where I had this very distinct memory. It was when Billie Eilish's first album came out, and I was with like a couple producer friends, and we were listening to it, and like there are parts in that album where it's like it's crushed. Yeah, like you hear the distortion. It was clearly done on purpose. And I remember like one of the producers would be like, this sounds like shit. Who the fuck would ever do that? And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like the kids like it.
Yeah. Straight up. Like, well, because it's not about you. It's not about the producer. It's about the culture, But in the moment, especially if you're like, like a nerd and you're obsessed with this stuff, it's hard to take your brain out of that. But I think it's an important step to take. Like learn everything and then unlearn it. And I feel like I'm in that place of my career where I'm like in the, let's just try like putting a really terrible mic on this, and just like as an experiment, just running with it. Or being like, hey, how about today we're only going to use 4 sounds as an experiment and just like, what can we get done with these 4 sounds?
Hey gang, I just wanted to pop in here to let you know that the best way you can help this podcast grow is to rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. It tells the algorithm to push our show to other listeners so we can grow, and it's one of, if not the best way to help support this podcast. So if you wouldn't mind, take a second to rate this podcast. Sharing it with your friends would be amazing too. All right, back to the pod. Let's go on to our first song deep dive, which is Jackson Wang's Blow. But before we get into the deep dive on it, I want to talk about how you got involved with Jackson's project and the story behind kind of that song.
So, my brother and I got called in. My brother Lou Allday got called in to like an 88 Rising camp. 88 Rising is the label that does a bunch of artists across Asia. Jackson Wang being one of them. And they were doing a camp for him. And there was just like tons of the homies there, like Wes Singerman, Tay Dex, all these people that are associated. And we got called in and like our co-writer didn't show up. And we were with this artist that like whistles. And I can't remember her name for the life of me, but she like is like a championship whistler.
Whoa.
So anyways, like it was just my brother and I, and again, like I can play, but like dog water, I can play. So, and my brother, I would say is less musically trained than me, although a very competent producer.
Oh, he's amazing. When I worked with him, it was like I got to do my favorite thing where I was just like playing everything. He was just like pulling up sounds like sick. It's amazing.
He's an incredible sound designer, all that. I love working with my brother. It's like such a gift. But we ended up producing this song and it became the title track of the album.
Yeah.
And it was our first time working with the 88 people. And they just kind of kept asking us to come back. And so
they're really good about that. It's what I appreciate about them as a label.
Yeah.
Is that they're like, cool, we like working with these people. We're
well, they ended up signing my brother to a publishing deal, So I love all those people, it's that company's run much differently than other labels, but they've been great to us. My brother is actually out in Asia like all this year working on the new Jackson Wang stuff. But we ended up just like going in on that project for like 9 months. So it was myself, an incredible songwriter named JQ.
Yep.
People don't know about JQ.
JQ is amazing. I just hit up his manager, Bryce.
Yeah, actually, Bryce is also the homie.
Yeah.
But so we squatted up basically. It was like my brother, myself, our other co-writer, Liam, Uncle Lily, JQ, and a writer that I've worked with forever named Jack Sampson.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, Jack Sampson's voice was translated so well to Jackson's voice. So we were sending in these songs that when Jackson would cut them, it was just like easy to go. And we actually ended up using a bunch of Jack's backup vocals on the records. So we wrote, I would say probably between 20 and 40 songs for that album.
Crazy.
And I think we ended up with like 8 or 9 on it.
For our listeners who don't know that, that's a very good haul.
Yeah, it's not executive producing, but it's like the vast majority.
Yeah, that's a pretty good, coming out after the fact.
Yeah. We put a lot of work in. We wrote a lot of songs that were so good that didn't make the album, because of whatever the process was.
But at least
still
pitchable.
Super pitchable. And some of those songs have been picked up by other K-pop artists and things like that. Although Jackson he's Chinese.
Right.
But he was in a K-pop group early on in his career. But the album, if you guys haven't heard it, it's called Magic Man, and it's very like Arctic Monkeys, rock, Black Keys type of vibes, which my brother and I, we are hip hop dudes, but we have like the rock sensibility, and any opportunity we can get to record live drums and live piano and things like that, we will take.
Yeah. It's
so rare that you get to amp things up and like experiment like that.
It's like my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, dude.
It's so much fun.
It truly is, but it is a rare occasion because the expectation is to turn out songs that day. Now, when you have a process like that where they're like, well, we want to spend the money on it, or Jackson wants to spend the money on it, he's a global superstar. Yeah. So if he wants it, they're going to put up the budget.
Right.
And if you're a producer, so my brother is also an incredible drum programmer, and he had programmed all of these amazing sounding drums, and him and I spent hours and hours sound designing, creating fills, like super detailed program drums that would have
probably been just fine.
Just fine.
Yeah.
But they want to do live drums. Yeah. So what we did is
Well, let me ask you a quick question. Were you guys like excited or just being like, man, we just put on all this work?
We were stoked.
Okay.
We were stoked.
I would have been stoked too.
Yeah, we were stoked.
Amazing.
Great. Yeah. And also, so we got to pick a studio and we went with Sound Factory down in Hollywood, which is down the street from our studio. It's like 3 blocks away. And we hired my favorite recording engineer, who's also, he mixes all of Doja stuff. His name's Ryan Lewis.
Okay.
I've known him for years. Not the Macklemore Ryan Lewis, but
I figured.
He's also an incredible drummer, bass player in his own right, a great producer. So we've continued to collaborate on stuff. But he's like Doja's go-to recording engineer, and has mixed the last album, and will be mixing forthcoming stuff. And he works at Sound Factory with her all the time. It's in the room there that they did like Marvin Gaye and Elton John. It has their SSL console and like a big fucking live room that's treated. It's such a beautiful studio. The owner, Leo, I've met multiple times over the year. Great dude. Mark Ronson owns the second half of the studio. It's one of my favorite studios to work out of in LA. And so we actually, 88 recommended this drummer named Brendan Buckley.
Okay.
Who he's like Shakira's drummer, but he's like drummed for everybody. And he came in and he's just a pro, like to the T, knew every song. Yep. I brought in my Questlove kit like the whole kit.
Yeah.
Brendan brought in his kit and Ryan brought in his kit, and we all brought in different snares. We brought in different percussive elements. And I think we did like 5 of the 8 songs with live drums, and Blow being like the first single on the album. It all got ran. It was like, I mean, they have incredible mics there. I couldn't tell you what they put up.
Right.
But we spent time on those songs. Like, all right, that kick drum doesn't sound right. Let's put in a different kick drum.
Yes.
We probably spent, I would say, 3 hours per song just getting the sounds right. And then Brendan was so good that it would take like 3 or 4 takes.
Right. That's the benefit when you work with an amazing drummer, where it's like, cool, we can take time picking out the tones.
Yes.
And then it's going to take you 5 minutes to track it.
And Eric Madrid mixed the record, you know, but also once we got the drums in and we liked the tones, Lou and I went in and like the mixes don't sound that different from what we sent over.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, and that's what you, again, we'll go back to it. That's what you want to deliver.
Yeah.
You just want a little more definition. Maybe your room was, you know, all of our rooms are a little imperfect.
Yes.
You know, you're lacking a little bit here, or there's a build up there. But we got to spend, I think we were in the studio for 5 days and just detail, like, okay, let's move the mic out a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've engineered for rock producers that just know how to do drums so well that all you're doing is pressing record,
right?
And like, or you're in the room and they're talking to you and they're like, move the SM7 like 10 degrees like up or down.
That's such a crazy skill set to me.
It's
so cool. But
it's so cool. And it's a dying skill set.
Yeah.
But recording live drums is the funnest thing ever. And then you think about like Tame Impala, you know, and like the one mic technique, or you really dive deep into like how they did like Beatles records. And I mean, there's just so many different ways you can mic a drum kit.
Yeah.
And then, you know, now you can easily have a kick trigger, a MIDI kick, and these sorts of things, and like really build incredible sounds.
It's become easier than ever to layer and like trigger things, because before it's like you know how triggers used to work for our listeners here. It usually needed like just the kick, right? Like, but now you can do a one mic, and actually you can like throw it into like Melodyne and it'll separate it for you. And it's like, oh, everything's separated. And this is way easier just to like layer in. And I mean, what a blessing it is.
Yeah. Like vocal 1, drums 2.
Yep.
You know, if you get those things right,
No, you're good.
If you get those things right, you're golden.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
so, and like working in a room like that, you know, that's just, it's not like even the most impressive room. If you get to go and just, it's Studio B, the SSL console,
right there.
You know, I think Ryan brought some stuff he had built himself, you know, that you like intentionally blow out.
Yes.
You know, you put like 2 mics on the snare and one gets blown out, or you put the mic that is from the drummer's perspective, like kind of pointed between the snare drum and the top of the kick drum.
Yeah.
And you just crank that one.
Yeah, I call that, I do that with a buddy of mine called Ben. His name is Ben Barter, amazing drummer.
Yeah.
He has his own little studio, and we call it like a trash mic.
Yeah.
You know, for him, we actually use an SM7. Like we have an SM7.
Yeah, the worse the mic, the better.
Right,
you know?
and he just like cranks it. I forget what he has, but he has like this, actually I think it's a distressor. He just like cranks the distressor. And it's like, you just blend it into taste. And it's so much fun and really nice.
Yeah, you know? And it is a blending thing, right? I mean, you could have it just take over the whole thing for an aesthetic thing, but for the Jackson thing, it's like we wanted it to bang because it's a pop record essentially. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, like for how amazing samples are, and like my brother and I, we like using like the contact drum sounds, you know, like the 50s, 60s sounds, and then I still love Addictive drums.
Yep.
I think Addictive is like a little flatter. Like I don't know if they sampled them as well as the contact drums did.
No, they didn't.
But it's a great writing tool. Like I still like doing my drums like on a keyboard, you know, like I'm doing hi-hats like that all the time. And so
you ever
does my
use
brother.
a Superior drummer?
No.
That's my go-to. It's like easy drummers like Big Brother.
Okay.
It's like, my take on it is that like Addictive is just like, oh, it just sounds good right away.
Yeah.
And Superior drummer, it's like the raw drum sounds are just significantly better. So it's like, if you know how to mix drums, it's more for you.
Right.
But it's those are.
I find myself like programming in Addictive and then taking that MIDI file and turning it into audio and like using samples that I find from other places, you know?
Yeah, that's smart.
Or like even at our studio, you know, we have We have this like incredible Yamaha jazz kit set up
Sick.
that my buddy's just storing in our spot.
Right.
But it's like he's a great drummer, so it's beautifully tuned.
Right.
And you just go in and just like hit a hi-hat 3 times at different velocities and sample that in, and you get like a really nice drum sound. You know?
I mean, so much of drums too, like live drums, is like I could get away with like just telling someone like, go in the room and just give me the cymbals and like the hi-hat. Like that's like so much of like the thing that plugins don't always get right. And then obviously like snare fills is like not always there. But for the most part, like kick and snares, like you can get away with great sounding samples. Yeah. It's like, it's fine. It's yeah, dude, that's really incredible. I want to talk a little bit about how you guys went about recording the guitars in that record or the album, because they sound really great too.
So Liam Kevaney, Uncle Lily, wrote and played all of those guitar parts. So he's my son. Well, he's not literally my son, but he is my son. He's just an incredible guitar player. He can play everything from jazz to metal. He's Sick. Noah Cyrus's MD. He's toured with Albert Hammond Jr. He's just a shredder and an incredible writer and producer. If you ever see him on your schedule, show up.
Be stoked.
Chill dude and just a great creative mind. Him and I write a lot together, so he'll come up with a riff and we'll work out parts, or I'll have an idea and he'll help me
like get it down,
actually play it. And we went pretty much DI on most of that stuff. We reamped a few things.
Sick.
But didn't replay because 88 just loved the tones. You are, once like people hear a record, especially with guitar tones, it's so hard to hear it a different way. Yeah.
You know,
I'm of the mind, right, where like there's some things that are really hard to record. Acoustic guitar is really difficult because it takes somebody that's not going to give you too much fret noise, like the sliding kind of jarring sound. When you hear an incredibly recorded acoustic guitar, you know that player has played a lot. Piano, like you can be a great piano player, but if you are on a noisy piano and you don't want that, there's no way to get rid of it, you know?
RX. It's gotten good.
But like
it's a pain in the ass.
If you have like a sustain pedal that clicks every time. I'm
telling you.
Oh shit. All right. I gotta be on that.
Yeah. Listen, it's a little bit of the pain in the ass, but like, it's kind of insane.
We have like an old piano, old stand up at our studio. And I actually just for my birthday bought myself like a 60s Yamaha, like mid-century gorgeous piano, but it had been completely refurbished and it's like,
perfect.
It's fucking perfect. It's in my living room and I'm just going to like wire things out, you know, but it just takes away a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's like, listen, like this piano right here, I've since gotten it fixed, but it had this horrible squeak every time I like hit the pedal and,
you were able to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Dude, the RX, the Wave stuff is still so great.
Yeah. Well, it's like RX specifically, it's like you have to load it in like the separate RX thing, which is like kind of annoying, but like you load it, like you take the file of the piano and you put it in RX and then it like has the whole, I don't know what you call it.
You're not just like de-humming it as a plugin. Yeah, that stuff doesn't really ever work well that way.
No, you have to like go in, like you can actually like see in the spectrometer, I think that's what it's called, like where the squeaks are, and you just like kind of scrub it away. And it's insane. It's really insane how like amazing technology has become.
Oh yeah.
And but again, it's a painstaking process, and I've since gotten it fixed because I don't want to deal with that. To your point, it's like I'd rather just have a good performance and like have it in there.
But also, it's such a different thing there's like the pageantry of miking a piano and playing a piano as opposed to like having a MIDI sound. And MIDI pianos never really sound great in my opinion. They can, but like there's just like a space that you get when you're miking a piano. Same with drums. Like
I think too, I wonder if you agree with this, where it's like sometimes when we have MIDI piano, it's just because it's so easy to quantize. We just do it.
You do it.
And editing real piano is actually a little bit of a pain in the ass, right? Where it's like you're not hitting every note at the exact same time.
Well, yeah, and the resonances from other notes lead into it. You can't just like, cut in a record after one part because it's, you're not going to get the resonance from the last take.
Yeah.
You could sometimes hear people breathing a little bit, which I think is beautiful.
It's all the little things that like, again, we want, as much as like AI is taking over the world, it's like we want those like human elements in a performance a lot of the time.
Yes. And I just think music, again, we're getting back from that era of like, like the Luke and Max Martin era where everything was just like
perfect,
absolute perfect pop music, and people are identifying more with like our flaws and things like that. It just and it just sounds cool.
To me, it's like it's very reminiscent of like music from the 80s and then how it shifted to the 90s.
Yep.
And that's how I feel about the 2010s to like the 2020s.
Yep.
Where it's
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's like this almost like complete parallel, which I find super, super interesting. So when you're going DI in the guitar with the guitar stuff, like what are you guys using for like, it's a lot of rock guitars. So like what are you guys using for like amps in there?
It's like the neural DSP stuff is fantastic. I'm trying to think of, Liam has this box. It's not the Kemp.
Is it the neural DSP box?
I think so. Where you can record an amp and it like creates a mod of it.
Yeah.
He uses that for all his live stuff, and he's just like, I think like had homies like give him sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
Those work so well.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing as well is like when we're in a session, I'm just running I'm running a DI from his Apollo into mine.
Oh, wow.
So he's actually just like playing it. And to me, psychologically, that it turns it into real audio. It makes it, it's not just like, even though it's all zeros and ones, like for whatever reason, I'm like, we're somehow turning it into electricity here. We do that a lot. And then when we're like, remiking stuff, you're basically like sending it out and putting it through an amp, but it's just specifically for the Jackson stuff. Like Liam's his first takes
are the ones.
Yeah, dude, there's just feeling to him. He's such an educated guitar player, but what's different about him than like, he went to USC for their guitar program, and I'm not knocking anybody that goes to a music program. Like I work with so many folks that went to Berkeley and things like that, but he is one of the few that like never lost like the grit.
Yeah.
He grew up out here in like Highland Park. Like he's like a punky ass kid, and he just never lost it. And when he's doing do it like this, you're like, fuck yeah, dude, that's the one.
Yeah, dude. It's so often for me, I'm the same way because I'm like you can see I have like 15 guitars in here.
Yeah.
I try and get it down the first time because there is almost always that magic when I'm just like, I wasn't thinking and I was just playing, and it's like, I record everything. I don't delete anything. There's like some people who like pick up a guitar and they'll start like noodling, and I'm like, I always make sure
record always. Yeah. If you're for listeners too, like always be recording.
Yep.
And the biggest compliment you can have as a producer / engineer is people like, oh, you were recording that? And it's like, yes, I'm always recording.
Yes. It's like, it's all like, even like the takes where like the singer would be like, oh, we can just do like a quick, like, let me just warm my vocal. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to record that. Yeah. Like, cause I'd be insane not to.
But then there's situations too where like I have a little Princeton in my studio, my home studio. I have a Rhodes there. It's just so nice to have that for a writing tool. But I was doing a Nashville thing, and we had a pedal steel player come through.
Sick.
And pedal steel is an extremely difficult instrument to play.
Yep.
And turns out an extremely difficult instrument to record. And the Princeton was picking up all sorts of not so great nuances that the DI that I put in wasn't. And it turned out that, like, for whatever reason, we weren't getting the sound out of the Princeton. Maybe it was because you could hear cars in the background.
Sometimes it's just like radio frequencies too that are coming through.
I get those. Yeah, I get like the
shit you can't control.
So having both options is good. And there are emulations. Like, I think there's nothing better than a real amp and a great guitar player and a great mic going through a good, signal flow, like the channel. But to have the DI option is just like insurance on your take and your money.
So when you're doing that, are you like, you have a splitter that's recording both at the same time?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can go overboard, and like,
of course.
I have like 3 channels, which is like on that particular session, I was recording like 5 different ways, but I ended up just kind of going with the DI and then like adding some sauce to it, especially because that instrument has its own thing. It's like recording a really clean Strat or something like that. Like the pure tone with just like a little bit of gain is.
Well, there's sometimes you can get really cool and like avoid phase issues, but you can get really cool tone sometimes where it's like you're recording the amp, but then you have this like just DI tone that it just like does a thing
and blend it in.
Right, you blend it to taste, and it, especially with like you bring up a Strat, like there's just something about like a DI'd Strat that like no other guitar does. It's just like that's just the sound, and they're some people that just absolutely love that sound.
Yeah.
I mean, that, to be fair, that was like a big sound of like the 2010s pop thing. Was
Totally.
like DI'd Strat, you know? Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Like, that's what that sound is. Yeah, I love that. I want to go on to the next song.
Yes.
If I can, one of the most fun records I've heard in a minute. I know it came out in 2023. Tanner Adell's Buckle Bunny.
Yes.
Yeah, Tanner is, I mean, a talent. She's blown up recently because she got to be featured on Beyonce's album,
Yep.
which I know has helped her get even bigger than she already was, starting to have radio success in country. But what was it like writing that record?
So that was probably the, 10th time I had worked with Tanner. Uncle Lily and I did like one of our first Nashville sessions with her, and we did a song called Dosey Don'tcha. And we kind of coined, I wouldn't say invented, but we kind of coined that sound.
Yeah.
Where it's like a super hicky, like chicken picky, like over just like obnoxious.
Slamming 808s.
Yeah, 808s, like trappy drums.
Yeah.
And Tanner she's a one-of-a-kind talent. She can really sing.
Yeah.
She is such a kind person to work with, but also like she will just say no to your face,
Good.
Yes, we love that. It's like a no that doesn't feel mean and keeps the conversation moving.
Right.
Like if Tanner told me to jump, I would just jump, She's one of my favorite artists up and coming in the world right now. We did that record in my garage in West Hollywood. It was me, Lou, Liam, Tanner, and Jesse Thomas, who is an incredible writer.
Another great, amazing songwriter advocate as well.
Yes. And she does
the Jesse and Friends
in Hollywood, and she did like an award show this year. She's an incredible creative. I've worked with her, half dozen times over the years, and just love her vibe. And she's also from Kentucky, so she's like a little petite lesbian powerhouse of a woman who's like, well, fuck, I'm from Kentucky, like let's go.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember if it was Jesse or Tanner that brought up the concept of a buckle bunny.
Yeah.
But like where I come from, and you go up to Tahoe and stuff like that, like a snow bunny is like a hot snowboarder chick, who's out there trying to meet the snowboard guys. And a buckle bunny is like a rodeo girl that's all done up and is there to try to holler at the dude that wins the rodeo. They want the rodeo buckle, the buckle bunny. And the concept of the whole song was to kind of take the power back to those women. Right. That like, no, it's like their whole style is fly. They're like, Buckle Bunny isn't a place of like trying to appease a man. It's like, it's like,
I want to look hot. Like,
it's more of an empowerment thing, like owning your beauty, owning your sexuality, and just kind of taking away like a buckle bunny is a bad term. Yeah. It's like calling somebody a slut, and like, we don't slut shame,
Exactly.
So the whole concept built from that. But Liam and I had perspective and ideas already from the track we did on Tanner's first EP, Dosey Don'tcha. So Liam came in with this idea, and me and my brother just went in on these drums. Yeah. And I forget what I was listening to at the time, but I had found this patch on my Prophet. I have like, it was like the 06, and it was just this like beefy bass patch.
Okay, one of my questions was, what's that sick bass sound? So there you go.
It's the Prophet, but like tweaked it out and like was just like, and I'm from the Bay Area, right? I came up making like hyphy music. So like those sounds, they're like kind of funky a bit, but like they're just nasty. And it's like the whole like fizz face thing you want, like the face, everyone was like, oh God, gross. And I had just like been in there that morning kind of working on that sound, and Liam came in and was like, oh, this works perfectly.
Like over what you're doing,
Yeah. And we just sat there in the studio that day and wrote that song. Yeah. And when it's like me, Lou, and Liam, the production's just going to sound fantastic. Yeah. I just gotten that Neumann, the KLM, and she cut everything on that mic that day.
Sick.
Not everything. The second verse we wrote in Nashville.
Okay.
And cut out there. But all of that vocal was just done. Yeah. Her holding the mic in her hand. And they had tried to recut it, but it just didn't have the same feel.
It's just how it is. And there's so much attitude in that vocal. Like, it's I could tell how it's like be hard to replicate.
She's also one of those artists that's like, if we're going to cut this, like I want it to be the thing today. Yeah. Otherwise I'm not cutting it today. And I really respect that. Yep. Yeah. I mean, that song too, like was on hold for like the Diplo country album. and they wanted to find a feature and they never could, or they wanted us to wait. And Tanner, to her credit, was like, fuck that. Like, I'm not waiting for some feature.
Right.
Like, I'm just going to drop it. And she did. And it kind of has turned into her brand, you know, like she's on the Buckle Bunny tour now. She's signed a new record deal. She signed a new publishing deal. She has incredible team behind her. She's working now with other producers and songwriters, The Genius and Worldwide Fresh. We've done more sessions over at Sound Factory. I'm so excited about her.
Yeah, she has like a really exciting career ahead of her. I feel like she's like, it seems like a really big talent. I've never had the opportunity to work with her, but just from afar, you know.
Well, and the Beyonce thing couldn't have happened at a better time.
Right.
Although Tanner was doing that before Beyonce, you know.
That's what we love about Beyonce, where she recognized that. She's like, hey, these people are doing it. I'm gonna show them off. Yeah. Like, introduce new people to them. And I thought that was, you know, like, worked for her and Shabuzi, like, just changed people's lives.
Yeah. Damn, do you know Nevin?
He was here last week.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
of course.
We were hanging out with Nevin this last weekend. That's another somebody that my brother works with a bunch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't even want to say that like Black country artists are having a moment, because country is inherently
Black music. Yes.
Black music. Yeah. But there are just so many incredibly talented Black artists. And Nashville is like starting to pick up on it.
It's not even starting. I think they're being forced to. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Yeah. And it's so like infuriating, even for me as a white guy to watch it. Like, and I'm, you know, but it's got a long way to go.
Yes.
But I remember when the Beyonce shit came out, and I was signed with Warner Chappell at the time, and I was in Nashville, and I just kind of was like being a little shithead and being like, what do you guys think about it? And they're like, oh, it's not country music. And I'm like, moving on.
Yeah, it's like, I can't. Yeah, it's like, I can't take you seriously if that's your opinion, you know.
But Tanner lives that life, you know. She's like, she you know, she split her time between Orange County and Wyoming. Right. So like her music completely reflects that like spectrum, you know? And I'm like, please call me, please call me. I just got so annoyed with country music for so long, because I felt like for what's felt like 20, 30 years, country music was like stuck, where it was like, we're like doing these sounds. And again, the songwriter is always great, and I know that's like the core of country music. But then you have art, like I said, like artists like Tanner and Shabuzi and countless others, Breland,
that were like pushing it forward, which it needed to be, and like people finally being like, all right, I guess we'll
giving it soul too, you know, giving it soul. Like, I think country music for a long period of time sounded like mega church praise music. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that music, but like sonically it sounded the same. Yeah. And then, you know, like the Morgan Wallens came around and like started adding trap drums. Like country music's always like 5 to 10 years behind what's happening in Los Angeles, which is nice if you go out there, you know, but because you're like, hey guys, you want to hear what's up?
Look at this, an 808.
But okay, so tangent a bit. But everyone in LA shows up with a laptop. Yeah. Everyone in Nashville shows up with a guitar. Yeah. I don't show up with a guitar in Nashville, you know? So you're kind of like this odd man out, and you got to figure out your way in. And it's fun to be a part of the new Nashville, you know? And like my success there was a fluke with Fancy Like and all of that. And that song, for how huge it was kind of detested by a lot of the people that have been working in that town forever. And like, you know, they didn't roll out the red carpet for me. Let me put it to you that way. Like, I got a great publishing deal out of it, but like, it wasn't like, oh, come on in, buddy. We love your authentic country song.
It's my one big critique of Nashville, where it's like they really kind of seem to gatekeep a little bit.
It's coveted. It's gatekept. It's like this weird secret garden. Yeah. It is a very...
It feels so patriarchal in a way.
Yeah, it is. It's structured in that way, for sure. Right. I mean, they don't play 2 female artists back to back on the radio and country radio.
I did not know that, but I mean, that seems to prove my point here.
The way, and there's so much data that supports this. They rarely play a Black artist. They rarely play a woman of color. Yeah. And they never play any of those back to back to back. Yeah. And it's this model that they're like, well, it's been working this way since 1920. So like, we don't want to upset our listeners, but there's no actual proof that listeners would.
Or you never tried to do the other thing.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it is
It's just such a ridiculous concept where it's like, who's listening to radio being like, another female and switching it.
Well,
like,
and maybe there's people, I'm sure there's people out there like that, The Nashville I go to, though, is like a very warm and like wonderful creative space.
This is more of like the big wigs that are
the infrastructure out there.
Yes.
I would say I've never been in a session where I was like, oh, I'm working with some racists, you know? And if I had been, I'd have been like, fuck this shit.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I learned when I would, the couple of times I worked in Nashville, where it's like, oh no, it's not the creatives, it's the people.
It's the infrastructure.
Yes, that are like controlling the radio, controlling the labels, all that other stuff.
Well, and it's, in a way, it's like terrestrial radio is so important and it's a dying thing.
Yeah.
Like cars won't have radios in the very near future.
Yeah.
New cars won't anyways.
Yeah.
I think radio will be around for
some form of it,
but so it's like I understand like let's get it while we still can type of mentality, and that's a big reason why I'm like I'll go to Nashville once a month, you know. Radio changes lives. Mm-hmm. But the infrastructure there is extremely frustrating and patriarchal and rooted in like old Southern racism and gatekeeping and things like that, and also like just hearing the experiences of female artists and artists of color that they've had out there is like extremely heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, it's
which like I've never experienced, and it's just extremely heartbreaking.
Yeah. I want to get back on the record and talk a little bit more about the production side of things. It's like I said, it's such a fun record. I think that I love that it's at no point it seems like you guys were taking it too seriously.
No,
which is I think what makes it so much fun. But I'm glad you answered the question about the bass, but how'd you guys go about recording those? I mean, you gave away a little bit that it's like your buddy, I'm forgetting his name. You mentioned
Liam, Uncle Lily.
Yeah, he's an incredible guitar player, and that's the key of it. But how do you guys go about recording acoustic guitars with him?
So it's the Neumann, and basically kicked everybody out of the studio, and kind of generally what we do with acoustics is we'll do just like a left-right pass, and he just is kind of on him to get it right. And I hold the Neumann, and I find like a good sweet spot. I had recently bought like this beautiful Martin acoustic, and we've been using that like crazy, and it was all set up and sounding gorgeous. And so
that's just another sidetrack. People, get your guitar set up.
Get your guitar set up.
Just do it. Especially like I want to punch studio managers in the face sometimes, where it's like, why do you have 15 guitars and they're all like they haven't been touched in 10 years?
Oh, dude, the guitars at Warner Chapel in Nashville, you can't play any of them.
Right. It's like, what do we do? Anyway, just a little side tangent. But okay. So
get your guitar set up. Have your instrument sounding good. Tuned, good strings.
It's not that expensive.
Have one shitty one to get a weird sound, you know, but other than that, get them set up. But I mean, dude, like there's really nothing pretty about this. Like I literally stood there, headphones on, held it, 12 inches from the 12th fret, aimed at, the center of the guitar, and had Liam play, and kind of left it raw like that. On guitars, I do like a bit of multiband compression. I'm big on multiband compression.
Are you mostly using Pro MB, or what are you using?
I love Pro MB, but that's kind of like my finishing thing, I almost use it like an EQ. Yeah. To just like round things out. I'm also mostly reductive when it comes to EQ. Yeah. If I need like more high end or something like that, I'm looking for harmonics, and like.
You on Spectre?
No, but
you should.
But Lou's trying to put me on that.
Yeah, it's really.
I like use the kind of same old tools in a lot of ways. It's like really unexciting from a nerd standpoint, but like I love Decapitator. I like blowing out like the LA2A to get stuff like that, or like
using the UAD one or the Waves one, or what do you like?
UAD one, the Waves one, the CLA2A or whatever it is. That one is great to like over compress stuff and get a lot of brittle like transients out of. Yeah. And then I do a lot of like exploding things and then taming them.
That's so funny, because like even Decapitator, like something that I'm not claiming I invented, but I came up with it myself when I was first starting producing, where I was like, oh, I really like just like pushing and punishing it, and then like bringing the mix to like 3 or 4%.
Yes.
That's kind of like my technique with Decapitator that I really like to do.
I couldn't agree more. I take that approach a lot on harmonic stuff in general. Yeah, dude, like recording guitar at my house is funny because you just have to, like, if a motorcycle goes by, you just got to wait.
Yeah.
And like next door, like the wall next to my studio is a daycare. So like, if they're out there singing Frere Jacques, you just got to wait till recess is over.
That's so funny.
It's pretty funny.
It's kind of fun. Yeah. Sometimes to like,
it's a bit brutal. I rent, so it's not worth it to me to like really soundproof or build it out.
I'm in the same way.
But the brutal part about it is we're always recording vocals at like 5-6 p.m., which is fucking rush hour. Yep. It's noisy, but if you can start cutting stuff like acoustic at like 1-2 o'clock, it's not so bad.
It's not so bad.
And that's one of those songs, dude, where like it just came together. And like we all left like, what just happened? Like, let's all work together again. Yeah. Let's go. It was one of those days where, and we're all sitting there, like the gang vocals on that all happened that day.
Yep.
Like, I think we had a couple beers. I cooked lunch for everybody.
I'd love to hear that.
It was a total vibe, dude. And it was pretty easy.
Yeah. Speaking of vocals and stuff, you mentioned that you recorded on that nice, cool little Neumann handheld there.
Yeah.
Once it's in the box, what are you and your brother doing as far as like mixing the vocal? Do you guys have like a vocal bus that you like to get mixed on? But how heavy-handed are you getting in there?
I like my vocals to sound compressed, but not overly compressed.
Cool.
So I usually do like, like I said, I'm doing like 3 dB before it even gets in the box.
Right.
I'm doing like a little roll off, a C6, maybe like a serial reverb on it, but I usually end up taking that off anyways and, bussing that out depending, unless like it just sounds great and they're attached to it.
Whatever.
And then I'm essentially adding like some multi-band compressors, like the Fab MB. Yeah. There's this plugin that I've been using that's like, I don't know, like a $30-$40 plugin called Xvox.
Oh yeah, I know, yeah.
And it's kind
I
of like
ads for it all the time.
Yeah. I've been in the habit of just like buying shitty plugins and seeing like what's happening,
Yeah.
But this one actually like not for main vocal, but like so I always have my main vocal,
right.
And that's on it's in its own group and it has its own vocal bus on it.
Same.
And then, I'm sending that to delay sends and maybe like a parallel compressor, like the DBX 160, things like that, if it needs it.
Right.
Like, especially like if somebody's rapping and stuff like that, and you just need more presence there. Mm-hmm. And then I take all my stacks and they're in their own group and their own bus.
Yeah.
And I like, sometimes I have so many groups doing different things, but with each of those, I'll add like a little bit of like weird flange or chorus effect,
just to put them in their own
space and give them a different texture. Because I just don't want anything to be conflicting with the main vocal.
Yeah.
And like with stacks and stuff, it's usually just like pulling out low mid so that they're a little more airy and rolling off some of the super highs so they're not getting in the way of the sibilance of the main vocal. I do a lot of just like reductive work and obnoxious effects and just like I'll do this, probably not a healthy workflow, but this like cyclical thing of like adding this to like let's say there's like a huge harmony part, there's like an 8-part harmony and I'm trying to have it feel really big, and I'll go in and get a great sound on that, and then I'll play it all back with the main vocal and okay, that doesn't work, or maybe now the stacks aren't working there. Then I just go in and get really detailed with automation, things like that. It's pretty chaotic.
Yeah, no, if you were to, I just sent over a song to mix yesterday, and it was like some of the most automation I've done in like a minute with everything, but it was a record that like really needed it. And I try and like do the thing where I open up all the lanes with all the automations, and like there was like one where it had like 8 different lanes of automation. And I was like, well, but that's what it is. And like I'm a firm believer that I should be able to play my acapella, and you should be able to feel the moments where it's bigger and smaller, just in the acapella.
Agreed.
Not, I shouldn't have to, I don't like to rely on my track. I like to have it go in the vocal and do that. And like, same thing, like my vocal template is such a big part of what I do, because it's like that neatness actually allows me to be more creative, where I can actually more quickly make things, sound weird, because like, oh, all my harmonies for like, I have like harms A, B, C, and like, lows. Everything is all separate and ready to go. So if I want to affect it, I can just do it so much faster.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah. I do weird stuff too, like where on my main vocal, right, I'll have, if I want like a vocal throw, but I love the way it sounds running through the main vocal bus, I'll drop that main vocal track down to the vocal throw track. Or let's say it's a really sibilant vocal take, or they're breathing super hard. Instead of automating each breath, I just create a duplicate track.
I've heard people do this same
Turn
thing.
it down and just drop every breath that's hitting too much down that way. Because then I'm not sitting there. I mean, it's kind of the same.
It's the
workflow.
same idea, but it's just a different way to do it.
Yeah. And again, I'm also the type of person that like, I'm setting my compressor and everything and I'm leaving it and I'm gain staging into that thing, as opposed to sitting there and tinkering with stuff. Because, I understand compression and I understand the theory behind it, but it's way more time consuming for me to like try to get the compressor to deal with the vocal. I try to get the vocal to deal, just to hit the compressor in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like I said, with like God particle or whatever, you can just crank up a knob and see how it goes. But with compression, like I want it to sound compressed, but not overly.
It's compressing on your terms.
Yeah, right? It's just stylistically, I don't work on music where like it needs to be insanely compressed. If you're gonna do some like baile funk thing and like straight crank that.
Go for it.
A lot of the times, like especially in pop music, you want a really great sounding vocal.
Yeah,
and let the backup vocals give you like the stereo image and weirdness like that.
Yeah.
Unless you're making a stylistic choice.
Right. Those are the different things there. I want to move on to our next couple, the last segments here, because I'm taking up way too much of your time. I want to talk about gear a little bit. What's something that you have either in your studio or in your home studio that you have now? It could even be a plugin. What's something that you keep going back to that you're like, man, I'm so glad I have this thing and I'm always going to use it?
I think having a Rhodes in your studio is like, I mean, it's a privilege and a treat, but it's just such a showstopper of a piece, and everyone just wants to sit there. And even when you're trying to figure out melodies and showing people, it's just such an easy tool to have right there to go be do do do. Yeah. And you can plug it in DI and run stuff like that. I got mine like 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, I can't believe I never had this before. I think my handheld Neumann microphone, like I've gifted it to a couple people. I know,
now. Like you're making me like think about like maybe I need to buy that.
It's like $600. You know, it's not cheap, but it's not expensive.
Well, I want a microphone because there are the people, which I respect it. There are people who just want to sit here and hold a microphone and sing.
I think most people prefer not to be in the booth these days. Unless you're a really seasoned recording artist, it takes people out of their comfort zone, and it's that. And then one thing I've recently invested in is like a bunch of headphones and like a big headphone amp.
Yep.
Because one of the issues I've been having with sessions is people losing interest once it's time to cut vocals. Like everybody wants to go to dinner or they're on their phones.
Yeah.
And I find that if you just like put headphones on everybody, it's like if you're in here, you have to have headphones on. If not, go outside or, do your own thing. When people are in there, you're going to get opinions. And they're going to be like, oh, wait. Let's what about that? You're going to get a better vocal.
You are so right, because people start to like tone out if they're not have headphones. And that was me. It was one of the things I learned as a top liner, where I would go to studios and they'd have like a pair of headphones for the producer and for the singer. And then everyone else in the room was just like, cool.
Yeah.
And
quietly scrolling Instagram.
Right. And I was like, this seems stupid, especially me. I'm always so involved in the vocal and I'm obsessive over it. And I was like, I never want someone to feel like that. So like, you can see behind me, I have a couple headphones here. I have enough where I can have like 5 or 6 headphones in this room.
And that's plenty, because there's, not going to be more than that many people in here.
And it's like, it's something I tell every producer where it's like, invest in a headphone. They have this one on Amazon for like $30. You can add on 4 headphones.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And it's amazing. And it just makes everyone feel, I'm all about an inclusive writing and recording environment.
Yes. And it should be that. And it just reminds people, because culturally, right, we're like, all right, writers, we did our thing. Like, oh guys, I got to go. It's 5, and it's like, sure, it's your life, but the song will be better if you who helped write the top line for this artist are here to like work through just the main take. Take one. Harmonies and stacks, fine. But if we can spend 1 hour getting this main vocal great, it's just going to make the song that much better.
Yeah, and then it's like, it's happened sometimes where it's like a top liner who maybe left or wasn't there when they recorded, they'd be like, oh shit, like I actually think we should have done it like that. It's like, well, I wish you were here
exactly
at the time to like tell me that. Okay, I want to move on to our next segment here. It's for new listeners, and if you don't know, but I think you do, this segment is called Plug or Unplug.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a piece of gear or a plugin. You say plug if it's something you love and you use, unplug if it's something that you're not really into, or bypass, make inactive if you don't know what it is.
Cool.
First one we're going to talk about, Soundtoys Primal Tap.
I would say plug, but I've just seen it used.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh God, that's so dope.
Yeah. It's a thing where it's like, I always kind of forget it exists.
I think I have it.
No, I mean, if you have the Soundtoys bundle, which most people are
Yeah.
buying because it doesn't make sense to buy the single plugins, to be quite honest. So most people have it, and then it's like, oh yeah, right, this guy, like, it's kind of crazy.
Yep.
It's a lot of fun. For those who don't know, it's kind of like a delay, but it does a different thing. I don't really know how to describe it. It's
Well, you could sync it to the tempo too,
Right.
but it does, yeah.
It does weird things. It's like a creative delay.
Like when I've been using it, I'll like use it and then use it as a send, but then
Yeah.
like roll off all the high information from
Right.
it. I think you can also do harmonic stuff on it too.
Yeah. It's got a couple parameters that, like, again, I so rarely use it that it's like, it's almost like a new plugin whenever I reopen. I was like, all right,
Yeah.
I forgot you exist. Like, you're fun.
I feel like Wes Singerman or somebody was like throwing it on. I was like, oh,
Yeah, right. That's sick.
Yeah.
All right, next plugin. I'm curious if you've used this one. The Good Hertz Low High. No, it's kind of like a
bypass.
Yeah, I mean, I love Good Hertz. I think they're making some of the best plugins out there. This one is just kind of like a
Like a lo-fi
utility.
type vibe?
No. It's like more of like a utility, like EQ thing, where it just like does like kind of like shifts in like the low end and the high end, and it has like this like air thing that's like kind of nice.
I love broadband stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, you always want something that just gives you a little more like.
Yeah, I'll reach for that when it's like, again, it's especially that air thing where I'm like, okay, I just want this thing brighter, but I don't want to do it harmonically. I just want it like, a little bit cleaned up. It's a good utility thing. And again, it's like, I like plugin companies where it's like, I feel like I can buy their bundle of every single plugin. It's like, oh, I can use every single one of these plugins. And they're one of those companies. Next one, I'm curious if you've used this. I just got put onto this.
I'm so nervous.
The Spitfire Labs Plus, their subscription.
I haven't done the subscription.
Yeah.
But I do use some of the Spitfire stuff. I think a lot of their stuff is great,
Yeah. They just, I don't know if like the Labs Plus thing is new, but like the Labs thing for a long time was like it still is free.
Yeah.
But now they have this like Plus thing where it's like they made like a bunch more. And I just got it yesterday. I was playing with it before you came here.
Oh, shit.
And like, it's dope.
All right.
It's like got some of the coolest, most interesting sounding things. They have this thing called Intimate Grand that is like one of the best, like rivals Keyscape, kind of like best sounding piano VSTs.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
You need that.
Right. And yeah, I don't know. I was just like, maybe it's because it's new and I'm excited about it, but I was really blown away by it. So
amazing.
There's a 2-week free trial you guys should check out.
Spitfire Plus.
Yeah. Spitfire Labs Plus.
Yeah.
Really fun. I mean, also like the free stuff is incredible. So just like get the free one if you don't have it. Next guy. I'm curious if you use this stuff. The Arturia Juno.
Love all the Arturia stuff.
Yeah.
I use a bunch of their stuff. I just kind of got the whole Roland pack thing.
Dude, the Roland stuff's really good.
I like did the whole subscription and all of that and downloaded like all of their sounds.
Yeah.
So I would say plug, but I've just recently kind of shifted over to like the Zenology and the Roland stuff.
Dude, my one complaint about the Roland Cloud stuff is that it's as incredible as it sounds, it's super fucking buggy.
Yeah, it crashed.
And it crashes all the damn time. And I'm just like, I've been using it for like years. I was one of the first people to use the Roland Cloud thing. And it's always been like that. And it's to a point where I just want to like call them and be like, what the fuck is happening?
Well,
guys?
dude, the Arturia stuff, like the Analog Lab, like all of their stuff, but particularly the Juno.
Yeah.
I had a Juno like on borrow for years. And the Juno's so, I think, accurate to, and also you don't get all like, when you borrow somebody's Juno, you're like, okay, the E4 doesn't work.
Juno here and it has its bugs.
Yeah. Super fun to play around with. Yeah. Although also the Juno's not like a synth where I like turning knobs. You don't get a lot of that on the Juno.
No, it's simple.
Yeah. To me, it's like the plugin I would almost take over.
Yeah.
That's sacrilegious. But
having both, right? And I have like a couple different like Juno emulations. It's like I will go for my real Juno when I'm like, okay, this Juno pad is like the backbone of the record.
Right.
But when it's like the Juno's just like kind of like a supporting thing where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm just doing an ARP thing in the background. It's like, I prefer to use the plugin version.
Yeah.
Because it's just like faster and like you can't tell the difference at that point.
I think that's the way to approach synthesizers too. It's
Yeah.
like, if you're like, hey, I came up with this part and I think it's really dope on this sound.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, yeah, that's the record.
Yeah.
Like, that's how like Roger works on
Yeah.
everything. You know, he comes in with like ideas and sounds that you could not like get better off of anything you have.
No.
That's a good shout.
Yeah. All right, next plugin. Is it a plugin? It is a plugin. Curious if you've used this one. It's a little bit of a deeper cut. The Kush Audio Hammer EQ.
I have not used it.
Yeah. It's based off a real like tube EQ, like Pultec style-y kind of thing.
I'm like trying to think if I heard somebody talking about it or if me listening to this podcast.
It might have been
before.
it might have been Arkwright because he loves it. He almost bought a real one and then he didn't. But it's good. It used to live on my mix bus. It doesn't anymore. But it's like a really great, again, like there's like the Kush bundle. They make a lot of great plugins. It's in that bundle.
Yeah.
It's one of the
The
ones.
Hammer EQ.
Yeah, Hammer EQ. It's good. It's good,
All right.
good for like mix bus or like instrument bus kind of thing. Shaping.
Like a finisher type thing.
Yeah. It's pretty great. Next plugin. Curious about your take on this because you mentioned you really like the LA2A a lot. And I have down here the Waves CLA 76.
Used it for years, like especially before UAD came out with all of their technology.
Yeah.
That used to be on my vocal chain all the time.
Yeah.
Like I would smack everything with their like LA2A and then like do subtle stuff with the CLA.
Right.
And I actually used to have like the real UAD like version of it.
Yeah, the 1176.
The 1176. I sold it like probably 5 years ago, but love.
Yeah.
Pass. Plug.
Dude,
Great.
I've actually went back to it, which is funny. I used to like use it all the time, then I stopped using it for years, and now I'm like back to it. It's just like it's that familiar sound.
Yeah, and also like the ratio aspect of it works super well. It's great.
It has a mix knob now, which they've added recently.
Love that.
Yeah, which is really nice.
Don't think I have. Maybe I have that version.
You probably do. It's like it's been like there for like a year now. So
all right.
Yeah,
maybe I should upgrade my waves now.
Right. Yeah, they just have the version 15 now, so it's like they're like upgrading a lot of like the UIs. It's kind of stupid, but it's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next plugin is one we ask on every plug or unplug because we get very funny answers. CLA vocals.
I used to use it all of the time. So I would say 7 years ago, plug, now unplug.
No. What made you like grow out of it?
Just like reliance on something like that to me became like, I don't know. To me, it's also like an RC20, you know, which is like, if it works, throw it on there.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe it's not unplug or whatever, but it's
a little bit of both, right?
It's a little bit of both. Like if it works, use it. But like if you're relying on that to make your vocals sound good, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think to me, it's like same. It was like every demo I used to throw it on there all the fucking time, and now it's like it's a last resort for me. Where if someone keeps telling me like, oh, the vocal's not hype enough, it's like I just throw that on there, and it's like, oh, now that problem is fixed. The real danger with CLA vocals, especially using it early on, is once it's on and people hear it with it on, it is so hard to take it off.
Yeah, it's pretty aggressive. Yeah, and like. I don't know. I think for me, it was more of like I was using it out of insecurity as opposed to like getting it right. Yeah. So
same. Yeah. No, I think that's why we all first started using it, where it's like, well, I'm told everyone uses this.
But what a sick plugin.
Right. I mean, it is. It does the thing. Yeah. It does what people want in a vocal for the most part.
I love it. That's the one. You should do that for the RC20 too.
I know.
Like, it's such the love-hate thing. It's like, they're like, you throw an RC20 on that, bro? You're like,
what's the problem? Yeah. Anyway, I want to move on to our final segment here.
Great.
This season, we've been asking our guests to give a small, short piece of advice to either themselves 10 years ago or up-and-coming producers that you wish you heard.
Okay. Find a mentor.
Love that.
Yeah.
Who was that person for you? I know you mentioned
it was Yeti.
A little bit. Yeah. Okay.
It was Yeti, but it didn't really work like a mentorship. Like I didn't realize I got mentored.
Right.
And I don't know if he was like, I'm your mentor. He never said that, but I worked for him. Right. So there was mentorship going on, but like, like always be trying to find and work with somebody has a vaster wealth of knowledge than you, and be humble about things when they teach their way. You don't have to follow their exact guidance to the book, but like it's such a nuanced business and a nuanced like form of creativity, and people that have habits and like have found lanes that work, there's a reason why.
Yes.
And so, and I just think in general, like this industry lacks a lot of mentorship. And so that's definitely something like I'm trying to implement in.
Yeah. I was about to say, like, to the more established producers who might be listening, I think that's on us.
It truly is.
To do that as well. Like I had, same kind of situation. My buddy, do you know DJ Kiri Kiedis, Daylight, the producer? He's a producer, songwriter. Like, he kind of was that for me, like, without realizing it. It was like I was working with him and he was just like always like teaching me things. And that's what I try and do now when I work with like younger producers. I'll be like, hey, have you seen this technique? And they'll be like, no, like, what's that? And like things like it's on us to share the knowledge. And to be quite honest, it's a big reason why I'm doing this podcast, because I want to like be open and share the knowledge with everyone.
Well, yeah, and you're doing good work. And I think part of the reason why it's hard is because producers, we have a hard time letting go of things that like delegation and things like that, because we're obsessive, but I think if I could give advice to young producers trying to do it, it's like find a mentor somehow, or just like ask if you can pull up on a session, or ask if you can help out. Like, I started as an unpaid intern, you know, and it turned into a whole career. And I think, once you get a bit of that like knowledge and guidance underneath you, like as your foundation, then you can start like adding your juice and your sauce to the pot and really kind of take off on your own. You don't always have to be under your mentor, Yes. It's a leap to take out, but that's what I would say.
Dude, I absolutely love that advice. Well, we're going to wrap here, but before we do, is there any last little shout outs or projects that you want to mention before we say goodbye?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on.
Dude, thank you for coming.
Super stoked to get asked to do something like this. I just want to shout out to my squad, Lou and Liam and Doug and Jack and Q, and
love it.
We're working on a bunch of stuff this year and this coming year, and I hope it all does well, and we all, not just me, but the royal you all find joy and satisfaction in what we do and make a little living at it while we can.
Dude, I love it. And Lou, if you're listening, which I'm assuming you will be, I am planning on asking you next season. I don't want you to be offended.
I'm seeing him in like an hour.
Good. I was
him.
Always planning on asking him. We have a record hopefully coming out that I'm excited to see if it comes out. Well, dude, thank you again to you.
Thank you so
to
much,
our listeners, and take care, guys.
Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Producer Points. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and share with fellow music enthusiasts. For an encore, check out our Spotify playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed on the show, giving you the perfect soundtrack to your creative journey. Additional audio and video editing for this episode was done by Nathan Rebello. Until next time, this is Justin Gamella.